Henry Ford III at Hillbank Superformance and the Cocoa Orange County Cobra Club
the Orange
meeting.
County Model T Club not too long ago. Are any of you in the Model T Club? Yeah. The average age of Model T Club is a little bit higher than this club. But they're a great group. And like this group, I think the one thing that everyone has in common is that we're all passionate about cars. And that's, I think, something that runs true for a lot of people. And it's kind of why we're here. One of the reasons why we're here. But
Carol is looking down on us, as usual.
And that's good. My first connection to the Cobra is actually a very painful story that I will share with you. It's something that I carry on my shoulders that will probably never go away. My dad had a 65 Cobra. It was CSX 2366, I think. And he bought it in the mid-70s. I was born in 1980, and he's blamed me for the fact that he sold it in 1983 for, I think he said like $20,000. I know. And ever since the day I was born, it's been my fault. He said that I always told him it was too loud as a little kid, and I would never want to go for a ride in it with him, and because of me, he sold it. I blame him for selling the car, obviously, because he could have just bought me a pair of earplugs. I don't think that was asking for too much. Little baby earmuffs. I mean, I'm sure they sell them, right? Yeah. So we blame each other for this, but it's unfortunate. I've seen pictures of it. Actually, we met the guy who currently owns it at. We were at the historic races at Laguna Seca during Pebble Beach 2 years ago, and we're walking around, and out of nowhere, literally, this guy comes running up to my dad with this big photo album, and somehow I don't know why he was carrying around this photo album, but he recognized my dad, stops him. He's a Swiss gentleman. I think he was French, because he had a French accent. And so he comes up to my dad and says, Etzel, I own your car. And my dad sort of looks at him like, what are you talking about? Because my dad had sold the car to a Ford dealer down in Georgia back in '83. And somehow it wound up in this guy's hands. And he now lives in Switzerland. He was back over for the races, finds my dad, runs up to him, opens this enormous photo book with all these photos of my dad's car. And I thought my dad was going to, start crying. And, he sort of growled at me for a little bit, reminding me that it was my fault again for selling the car. But it was actually really cool to meet this guy. And he actually races the car. He's had it at Le Mans a few times. And so I think it was nice to at least see that the car is in good hands. But anyway, so I've had a long connection to the Cobra, I guess, and so it really is an honor for me to be here tonight. I work for Ford. I started working for Ford in 2006. I work out here, actually. We have a regional office just down the road, next to the Taco Bell building. It's sort of a regional hub for sales and marketing for the West Coast. I actually work on the Lincoln brand right now. We're sort of in the process of reinventing the Lincoln brand, which is a long process, but an interesting one. And I had never really paid much attention to the luxury segment of the industry, so it's been a good learning experience for me. I've always sort of been more interested in the performance side of it, and Mustangs and Cobras to me are more interesting than luxury brands. But it's been good. I've really enjoyed my time out here. And growing up in Detroit, or outside of Detroit, it's interesting because you come out here and you don't see many Fords on the road. You're starting to see more now, which I'm really happy about. But coming from Michigan, our market share is 19-20%. So 1 in every 5 cars is a Ford. You come out here and it's 8-9%, and it's a humbling experience. And I think it reminds me and everyone else at the company that we still have a long way to go, especially on the coast, both the West and the East Coast. But it's been a great experience for me. I met my fiance out here, who's here tonight, Emily, and so it's been a great. I've been out here for about 2 years now. Prior to my time out here, I was working back in Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. Well, actually, I was born in Australia. My dad was working for Ford of Australia at the time. And then we moved back to Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. I graduated from college and I became a teacher for a while. I knew that I wanted to work for Ford in the back of my mind, and so that was never really a question of if, it was sort of a question of when, and I guess there was a part of me that didn't want to go into the business right away. I wanted to do something where I felt like I could, I don't know, make sort of more of a difference or try to give back, and I had a lot of great teachers in my life growing up, and it always seemed to me like a very admirable profession, and it was something that I wanted to try for a little while. So I did that for a couple of years, and I loved it. And then in 2005, the automotive industry was sort of at a tipping point. Ford was losing a lot of money. I mean, I think at one point we were literally burning through millions and millions of dollars of cash per day. And it was sort of a grim outlook for the domestic automobile industry. And I think something in sort of me just kind of flipped, and I got triggered by something, and I decided that I wanted to get involved in the company and do something, play some kind of role, have some kind of part in trying to turn the company around, because I sort of said to myself, the worst thing that can happen would be, we don't make it through this downturn, and I'm kind of left on the sidelines looking in, and I didn't want that to happen. So my first job at Ford was working in labor relations. I worked on the UAW collective bargaining agreement. UAW is United Auto Workers, the union that represents all of our hourly employees. And it was a really great experience, because it sort of gave me a look into a side of the company that I didn't really know much about and I hadn't really experienced before. And like all of you, or like many of you maybe, I met a group of people who are so passionate about the company and so connected to it. And the great thing about Ford, for me personally, is, my family's connection is obviously very important to me, but I constantly meet people who have that same connection. And, their father worked at Ford, or their mother worked at Ford, or their sister worked at Ford, or their cousin worked at a dealership, or a supplier, or it's this really kind of vast web, and it kind of connects us all together. And it's something that I really think is very powerful about Ford Motor Company, and it's one of the things that I really love about it. And so I met a lot of great people, and that was really a great experience for me. So I did that for a couple years, and I worked in purchasing. I worked on supplier contracts for the Fiesta, currently out now. Then I sort of realized at that point that if I wanted to sort of continue working at Ford and if I wanted my career to progress, I needed to go back to school and get an MBA, because I was an English major in undergrad, and that, I don't know, an English major doesn't get you very far in the corporate world these days, so I sort of realized that I needed to brush up on my accounting skills and economics and marketing and finance and all that good stuff. So I left Ford for 2 years and went back to school to get my MBA. And while I was gone, it's a 2-year program, and in the summertime you have the summer off to go and get an internship, get a job somewhere, get some kind of business experience. And so I worked at Galpin Ford up in Van Nuys, selling cars for the summer. And it was kind of it was just sort of an opportunity for me to learn a different side of the business that I really didn't know much about, and I don't know, I'm one of these people who likes to learn by doing, and I think that's kind of the best way to do it sometimes. So I show up, and my parents have known the Bachmans for a long time, and they're a wonderful family, and obviously they have the biggest Ford dealership in the world, so it made sense to work there for the summer. So I show up in June, and this is June of 2009. which was more or less, I think, the low point of the industry. I think Bert Bachman told me at the end of the summer that, and he's run Galpin for 50 years, and this is the summer that I worked there. He said it's the worst summer they've ever had in their entire history. And I said, I really hope it wasn't because I was working there. And I was out there selling cars in June and July of that summer, and nobody was buying cars. I mean, it was a very long summer, but I think it taught me a good lesson, which is that selling cars is not easy. I mean, you have 10, 15 minutes maybe to build a relationship with a total stranger and convince them that you're trustworthy enough to sell them a car, which is most likely the second largest purchase that they'll make in their entire life. And that's not a small task. And there were days where, I was sitting outside with the other sales consultants literally for hours at a time, just waiting for people to show up, because I didn't have any kind of customer base that I could call up. And then people would show up, and I would have, my little name tag on that said Henry Ford III, and they would say, "Yeah, right. Go." It's not very funny. Go find me a real sales consultant. But it was a fun summer, and I really enjoyed it. And I learned a lot, and it was a good character building experience. So then I graduated from business school, came back to Ford, and worked in product planning on the marketing side, which was a great job because I learned a lot about sort of all the long-term strategic planning that we as a company do, and that all companies do. I mean, we have to think 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years out ahead, and essentially, to a certain degree, kind of guess where the market's going. And we have to understand who our customers are and what they want, and where they're living and what they're buying and how much they're willing to spend and what they want in their cars, what kind of features they want. And there's a science to it, but there's also a lot of sort of art and finesse to it as well. So it's a really interesting place to work, and I got to interact with a lot of the engineers and designers and finance guys, and so it was another kind of interesting window into the company, and it was a great experience. Then I got transferred out here, and out here I work more with our dealers and try to help them grow their business, try to help them execute some of the programs that we as a company launch, wholesale vehicles to them, help them improve customer service, help them improve sales, work with them on kind of local experiential marketing activities. And so it's interesting. It's very, I live in a very kind of short-term and real-time environment. And, there are, a lot of times there are certain fire drills, like, when there's a recall, for example. And it's very different from what I did back in Dearborn. So it's been a really great experience. And, this market out here is so obviously environmentally conscious and focused on fuel economy. And thankfully now we as a company make some really good small cars. And I don't think you could have said that 10 years ago. So we have some really great products now that we can offer customers. And that's helped us regain a lot of the market share that we lost over the past 10, 15 years. So that's kind of my quick background. I can talk about anything else that you're interested in. So I think I'll just sort of do a Q&A. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and I will, to the best of my ability, try to answer it. Yeah?
Why did you folks wait so long to go for an international Mustang so you have left and right-hand drive? Which, by the way, I think is a great idea. And
yeah.
2015 is a spectacular car.
Thank you. Part of the reason was and I know this is kind of hard to believe, but there wasn't really a lot of demand, at least according to people who I've talked to. This is all, a lot of the answers I'm going to give to you tonight are sort of half of kind of what I've heard through the grapevine, because being stuck out in California for 2 years, you don't really know what's going on back in Michigan. So a lot of what Yeah. I shouldn't say stuck, you're right. Michigan got 8 inches of snow today, so I'm very happy to be out.